Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. Got a frost advisory out for the central Tanana Valley for both tonight and tomorrow night. Temperatures expected to drop into the upper 20s to mid 30s both nights, and this doesn't kick in until after midnight tonight, and same time for tomorrow night as well. In fact, there's pretty good chance of some frost over just about all of the interior valleys both tonight and tomorrow night. Of course, the areas that are clear and lose the wind will be the most likely areas to see that. Otherwise, on the satellite, this is the low pressure area that brought the gale force winds to areas of the coast this morning and is bringing the rain right now over the southeast coast. You can see most of it moving inland, breaking out a little bit there along the south coast and to a lesser extent up along the north coast, but that'll be changing over to showers and beginning to diminish slowly tonight with the winds dropping off. This band of clouds associated with a front that brought the 2/3 to 3/4 of an inch of rain to Cook Inlet on up into the Susitna Valley last night and into this morning, that pushed eastward. Northwest winds, west-northwest winds cleared the skies out over the Susitna Valley and into the inlet. This morning, there's only a beautiful afternoon, some breaks up here also over the central Tanana Valley there in west-northwest of Fairbanks up into the Yukon. Then a lot of moisture, several bands rotating southeastward onto the northwest Arctic coast and then down, taking a turn to the west across the north slope, but getting into the Brooks Range here. That first band with the main front still hung up on the east side there, gradually pushing through. You can see another batch of moisture sliding in to the western Arctic coast this afternoon. Otherwise, just a lot of clouds and some scattered showers in the form of rain and snow, say north of Kivlina and up on the western Arctic coast, and of course into the western mountains there with any elevation falling as snow. And that's going to continue tonight. Some scattered showers down over the southwest interior as well, but pretty light. McGrath only picking up a trace of precipitation the last 24 hours. Same thing at Nome. So not a whole lot there, but Bettle's picking up about half an inch of rain with this main system as it pulled through that in the last 24 hours. But you can already see moisture coming out of the Bering Sea here, spreading into Kodiak Island. Mostly mid and high level moisture there. Still reached 66 degrees today at the state airport at Kodiak. That was the highest temperature recorded in Alaska today was there. 27 at Barrow was the state's low, but a lot more moisture out here to the west, and that's going to all be sliding eastward in pretty good westerly winds aloft out here. Rain over the Pribilofs today, and that's going to be pushing into the Bristol Bay area, and looks like some periods of light rain possible here for the eastern Aleutians. Not much has occurred yet, except possibly back toward Nikolsky. And that'll mostly pass by to the south of Kodiak Island tonight and into the western Gulf of Alaska and southwest Gulf during the morning hours tomorrow. Well, this afternoon, that's about the position of the front right through there. Some isolated thunderstorm activity breaking out, but nothing too widespread, mostly just east of Eagle. And this the low pulling up along the southeast coast. You can see several troughs, or a couple troughs yet to come through, but the showers will be diminishing over time and becoming more scattered and tending to taper off tomorrow morning. High pressure out over the northern Bering Sea with low pressure up there over the Arctic. That produced some 20 to 30 knot winds from the northwest here, riding in on that trough, bringing the chillier air with it. a lot of moisture back to the west over the Aleutians. We'll see for tonight that spreads eastward. I don't know if it'll get that far north in Bristol Bay there, probably staying off the south coast, but definitely a pretty good chance of some rain into the Alaska Peninsula, back to Cold Bay, eastern Aleutians, periods of rain tonight, and fog, IFR conditions with this, but clearing out over the interior, and temperatures again dropping below freezing or into the 20s here over the central interior in the clear areas, and rain and snow back to the northwest there at times, all snow with any elevation at all. Endicott to be Sound, kind of a mixture, just some very scattered isolated showers possible over Norton Sound, mainly in the northern Seward Peninsula areas. Otherwise high pressure, light winds out over St. Lawrence Island, the northern Bering Sea. And this front, right about in this position, not a lot of weather with it here in the Gulf of Alaska, just kind of a weak wind shift there with more of a north-northwest breeze back to the north there. But some rain and snow showers continuing over the Copper River Basin tonight, and just some scattered moisture up along the eastern interior, but again clearing out to the west, becoming mostly clear. Still showers, another trough, looks like possibly the last one there, moving through with a main upper low, but there's a series of troughs out here embedded in the westerly wind flow in addition to this system, which tomorrow will be shifting eastward with the low now right about the Gulf of Alaska tomorrow afternoon. And still another trough keeping the showers going, so they won't end completely there for the Panhandle, but definitely be a lot less, more in the isolated scattered area tomorrow. But this moisture streaming eastward, maybe these breaks will get in late tomorrow afternoon before the clouds and rain overrun it and make their way into the southwest coast tomorrow night. But back to the northwest, more snow from about Barrow on down to Point Lay, and then a mixture of tomorrow, especially in the afternoon, mostly rain in the lower elevations with some gusty northwest winds again coming in, or west northwesterlies behind that trough. No change over the Bering Sea, high pressure over the northern areas with light winds, and then looks like some lingering moisture with this low as it pulls southeastward there towards the eastern Aleutian area. So some scattered showers back to the west, but fair, and not much going on farther out in the Bering Sea, and not much of a northwest wind behind this system. So after the clouds move through with the chance of moisture, southern Kodiak Island tonight, clear back out tomorrow with just a lingering shower down towards Sitkinak, back over to maybe Chignik, and that's about it. But otherwise a lot of sunshine, south central Alaska, light winds, and sunshine from Nunivak Island, Macoriak, northeastward, right up to just south of Arctic Village. Otherwise some lingering rain and snow showers up over the Berks Range, but the eastern Arctic coast, North Slope looking dry for the most part as this system approaches from the west. And next trough and that southwest wind flow keeps it possibly VFR at times on the east side. Outlook for Sunday, yet another trough brings another round of light snow or rain and snow mixed to the Arctic coast up there. Otherwise, we've got scattered showers over the interior. Again, another trough axis rotating around the upper center aloft, which is back above the surface low up in that area, but mostly sunny skies. Light winds for the upper Yukon Valley, right back down. Beautiful sunshiny day for Sunday for south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula. Get into some clouds as you enter Prince William Sound, with still some lingering showers, mostly in the afternoon hours over the mountainous terrain of the Copper River Basin. And again, scattered showers here. Most of this moisture with that system sliding off to the south. Probably catch some rain over the southern Panhandle tomorrow night with that. But for the most part, that'll all be pulling off to the east. Could be lingering up there, say from Heidelberg over to Annette, Metlakatla, possibly Ketchikan, but just scattered showers up to the north, maybe some clearing periods. And the next one here, again, pulling east of Kodiak Island and developing, and that'll be pushing off to the east for Sunday night and Monday. And then this moisture ahead of this warm front, big push of warm air coming up in from the Bering Sea and the western, southwestern Aleutians areas, actually back in this area coming through. So that's going to put a lot of warm front type weather into this Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island, right up into the Seward Peninsula. Fog, low clouds, rain, drizzle, that type of thing. Light precipitation, widespread IFR with that though, but as the wind flow turns offshore, sunshine here, Bristol Bay with those north winds and pretty good conditions, maybe some patchy fog along the Alaska Peninsula. Not bad out here over the Aleutians. Winds are light and dry conditions, variable clouds. Could be some sunshine breaking out for the Fox Islands, Adak and Atkin, even Shimia. Otherwise, looking at temperatures today, or for Monday, actually this area of moisture will be working its way eastward and southeastward, and by Monday afternoon it'll probably be right up to the Alaska Range and on down into Bristol Bay. So look for increase in the clouds and chances of rain for Monday out in this area, otherwise staying dry and fair, mostly sunny over the east side. For temperatures this afternoon, 55 at Sitka, same thing at Ketchikan, mid-50s. Up over the remainder of the southeast coast, 60 at Yakutat and 64 over at McCarthy, but only 51 with rain there at Gulkana. McCarthy got a break in a cloud, sunshine this afternoon. 58 at Northway, 50 over at Delta, 51 Fairbanks, 47 at Nenana. In the Susitna Valley, Talkeetna, 53 degrees, 60 at Palmer, 58 Kenai, and a 61 at Homer with 59 over at Iliamna. Back to the northwest, a little cooler, 49 at McGrath, 50 at Tanana, and up to the north, Anatuvik, just 34 degrees this afternoon. And same thing as Kaktovik, Barrow 37, 40 degrees. Over at Point Lay, 39 for Cape Lisburne, mid-40s here, Kotzebue Sound, Shishmaref, even Tin City. Pretty uniform temperatures back across the Seward Peninsula with 47 at Unalakleet. St. Michael had 50, and also 50 at Amonic. A couple of degrees warmer there at Macoriac. Mid-50s for the Pribilofs, 60 degrees in Unalaska. Otherwise, 55 pretty common all the way out to Shimia with 58 at Cold Bay. Lows for tonight, upper 40s, lower 50s for the southeast coast. And again, mid-20s to lower 30s to mid-30s possibly here over the central interior. More wind off the open water there, keeping it above freezing here along the northwest coast. Mid-40s St. Lawrence Island and 50s along the Aleutians. 40s and 50s over southern Alaska. For the highs tomorrow, 35 to 40 over the Arctic coast and North Slope areas. 40s for the Brooks Range and 50s here over the interior, mid-50s right back down to the southwest coast. Lower 60s for the Panhandle, reaching possibly 60 for Kodiak, mid to upper 50s for the Aleutians. Flying weather, this area finally shifts out of into Canada there tomorrow morning, be lingering this evening right through here, but kind of holding on to the southeast interior throughout the day tomorrow with even some IFR at times, but conditions gradually improving. Marginal VFR across the southeast coast. Could get into some VFR tomorrow afternoon as this area moves on in, but some lower conditions that next system mostly pushing off to the south. So this IFR area probably just affect the Prince of Wales Island area and Dixon entrance. Good VFR out along the southwest coast tomorrow with offshore flow into the interior, and then more IFR for the western Arctic coast and areas of marginal and IFR with some breaks of the VFR varieties here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Passes, Anatuvik, wide open tomorrow. Either approach, good VFR. Same forecast for Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, ceilings visibility is unlimited for both rainy, windy, and Isabel, though, starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Same thing for Mentasta, lower conditions in the morning, gradually becoming VFR, probably by noontime. Tanita, VFR, start to finish. Portage, VFR. Chilkoot and White, look for an improvement in conditions from the lowest in the morning, improving to marginal or better late tomorrow afternoon. And the freezing levels for late tonight or early tomorrow morning, you can see the main surface here right down to the Brooks Range, maybe a little to the south, 2,000 feet north coast of the Seward Peninsula, and then 4,000 to 6,000 feet down across Bristol Bay. Warmer air back out over the western Aleutians, and not much of a gradient at all. Kind of upper low pressure keeping it in that 5,000 to 6,000 foot range over the Panhandle. Icing, look for occasional moderate mixed above the freezing level there. And again, most of that will be shifting eastward in the morning hours there, but kind of lingering. Some more moisture here poised to move in again, mostly to the south. No icing over the interior, possibly mixed icing at times. 2,000 to 6,000 feet there coming into the northwest coast, and then some lingering stuff out over the Bering Sea. upper level low one now tracking into the Yukon, another one sliding down to the southeast, and behind that a good southwesterly jet at 120 to 130 knots. That's going to pull that next system into the Gulf of Alaska quite rapidly tonight, and then mostly take it off to the southeast, affecting just the southern panhandle. On Sunday, the central and northern interior are under the influence of the Arctic low up there with 40 to 50 knot west-southwesterly, so there'll be impulses rotating around that, but just some bands of showers and mostly over the northwest and northern areas, and the next low dropping into the Bering Sea. 9,000 feet shows lingering low here right over south central Alaska, but not much wind, maybe 20 knots. Kodiak Island for a little while, the strongest winds are down to the south, and then these northwesterlies coming in to the northwest coast, 30 to 35 knots. 3,000 feet showing southwest 20 to 25 knots. Strongest back to the west here, or the northwest, much lighter and more variable here over the central and southern interior. And for the panhandle, southwest up to about 20 across Dixon Entrance, and some northerlies, maybe up to 30 knots over the west central Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, occasional light to moderate chop here in the turquoise area from the eastern Arctic coast and across the Brooks Range in across Kotzebue Sound, Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburn, maybe down to Shishmaref, but none south of there, maybe a little choppiness out over the central Aleutians. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening. I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to Hangar Flying. We welcome back Anna Anderson tonight. Anna is a Fish and Wildlife pilot biologist, and she has had an amazing aviation career. And if you tuned in last time, she talked about flying in Africa, which was her, I think, her last job before coming back to Alaska. Incidentally, if you go on our website, www.aasfonline.org, we publish our past hangar flying shows, and in a couple weeks we'll have these on, and you can catch up on some of the ones you might have missed. Anna, welcome back.
Thank you.
So we talked about flying in Africa. In January, you came back to Alaska. Tell our audience what your job is, and talk about a typical mission.
I fly for the Fish and Wildlife Service here in Anchorage for migratory birds, and we use a Cessna 206 on amphibs. We use the amphibs mainly for, we fly at 100 feet, 90 knots, counting migratory birds. So it's mainly safety reasons for the amphibs with all the water areas that we go to. A typical mission would be probably planning about a week and a half to a lot of the feeding and breeding and molting sites for a lot of migratory birds. And like, I went to the Yukon Delta this summer, and you spend about a month planning the route, getting there, planning fuel, where you're going to get fuel, getting all your computers set up with a program that we have that you talk into a microphone, and it gives a lat-long position as a donut on a computer program, and then also hooks a wave file of what you say into the microphone. So we'll fly along, counting birds, and just talking to a microphone and make sure the computer is working. And
why is this important? What do we do with the data that you gather?
A lot of the data they've been collecting since the 80s, when the decline in migratory birds from maybe too much subsistence hunting, and so just to bring the numbers up, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act to work together, because birds don't have what do you call it? lines where they don't go. So yeah. It's like through different countries. We work with Canada, Mexico, and a lot of the Native Americans and the locals just in harvesting and putting together regulations from the numbers that we get.
And it actually
how
could,
to-
for a duck hunter in Louisiana, could ultimately determine what the bag limit is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about you are obviously a very successful pilot, a very successful biologist.
Thanks.
But you know, when we talked a little bit about this, when I look at the percentage of women in the professional pilot ranks, the number's still well below the national average. So I think you are a role model for what you've done. You have any advice for young women out there that might be interested in getting into aviation and doing something like you've done?
Don't be intimidated by it, and there are lots of different organizations that help young women get into areas of work like this. So, like the 99s offer lots of scholarships. The Women in Aviation, there's lots of scholarships. I work with Girl Scouts usually every year to do like their aerospace badge or getting them into simulators, seeing if they are interested in flying, and to not try to find people in the field and figure out how they got there, because I didn't have that. No one in my family flew. Not a lot of people in Wyoming are pilots like Alaska, so it was hard figuring out how do I become a pilot. And so the only way I knew was researching universities, and so.
Well, you're a great role model, and
Thanks.
thank you for your efforts in that regard. We are going to run out of time again. You know what? I'm going to get you back one more time, and I'd like to talk a little bit about, you've just gone through pretty extensive flight training with Fish and Wildlife. I'd like to talk a little bit about that and some of your ideas on aviation safety in Alaska.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thank you.
And we'll do one more session.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, I hope that you've enjoyed tonight's program. I want to remind you of a program that the Safety Foundation started this past year. And it's called the Right Stuff Award. And what we're looking for is for you to nominate people. They can be pilots, they can be rampers, they can be anything to do with aviation, mechanics, who have made a decision that shows courage in promoting aviation safety. If you have somebody that did something that you thought was, like I say, they had the right stuff, please let us know, and we'd like to consider them for this award. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, from about Stevens Passage up through Lynn Canal, winds will be south 10 to 20 knots. Most central areas actually on down to the south, southwesterlies 10 to 15. West 15 for the central and south coast, while the north coast will be looking at southwesterlies at around 10. And those light winds will continue. And then the next system coming in toward the south coast could kick the winds up to 20 knots at the way it looks right now. Otherwise, mostly easterly at about 15, lighter to the north. Southerlies at about 10 for Lynn Canal, and light variable winds through the central inside waters, and then Clarence Strait maybe up to 15 knots, otherwise light and variable. Prince William Sound pretty light tomorrow, as well as northern Cook Inlet, mostly west 5 to 10. Otherwise 10-knot winds on down into Kamishak Bay, southwest 10 for Shelikof Strait, 15 knots, the Barren Islands here, but quite light. They're east of, or along the east side of Kodiak in that marine zone. Light winds also for the North Gulf Coast from the southwest. Then for Sunday, light variable winds, Prince William Sound, right down into the, actually the Gulf of Alaska, northwest 10 to 20 for the western Gulf Coast here, particularly the Barren Islands, dropping back to 10 knots for Kamishak Bay. Continued light winds for Cook Inlet, southwest maybe 15 for Shelikof Strait. Bristol Bay, northwest 15 knots, probably some 20-knot winds out in this area tomorrow, otherwise north 10 for the Alaska Peninsula, northwest 20 southwest of Sitkinak. And the outlook for Sunday, about the same there, but picking it up to 20 knots from the northwest for Bristol Bay, otherwise north to northwest 15 for the peninsula. The Aleutians not looking bad, 20-knot winds here, Adak and Atka, but lighter for the Fox Islands. And for Sunday, southwest 15 for the western Aleutians, otherwise really laying down kind of area high pressure right through here. So some light northerlies across Atka mostly, and then at about 10 to 15 knots for the Fox Islands. For the southwest coast, northwest become northeast here at 20 knots coming out of Kuskokwim Bay and mostly south of Nunivak Island. That'll extend right out across the Pribilofs. North winds at 10, pretty light for the northern Bering Sea. Westerlies at about 20, possible there for St. Lawrence Island. Now it'll become a little more southwesterly at the same speed up there for Sunday. Look for small craft advisories over the northern Bering Sea and that marine zone for St. Matthew Island. About 20 knots here north of the island here, northwest 15 on down to the south. And for the Arctic coast, light variable winds on the east side tomorrow. Otherwise, the strongest winds look like they'll be from Cape Lisburne right down to the Bering Strait out of the west at 20 knots. But then those will become lighter, and possibly another system a little more gradient with that next trough could kick the winds up to 25 knots for small craft advisories for the western and central Arctic coast, at least for a period of time on Sunday, but much lighter to the east. And for tonight, clearing out. So there are frost advisories out for at least the central Tanana Valley, the greater Fairbanks area for temperatures dropping down into that 26 or 7 degree range. Other areas will be up into the mid-30s, but clear and chilly here all the way down into Cook Inlet and Bristol Bay. This area will be sliding a chance of rain mostly south of Kodiak Island to about this position tomorrow afternoon. Showers will be on the decrease, but won't completely end for the Panhandle until probably tomorrow evening. Clear and cool here through the interior, and several impulses rotating some moisture into the northwest Arctic coast, and then some warm front type moisture coming into the west on Sunday, and that'll be sliding southeast on Monday. That's a look at the weather. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.